Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables. I'm your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you tonight?
I am doing terribly because the Sixers are blowing it. Yep, they're playing in the play-in right now. Obviously, if you're listening back to this, you know whether or not I have made it until tomorrow. Yeah, not doing too great. It's the beginning of the second quarter, and they are blowing it. So we will see what happens.
Is that typical Sixers fashion?
Normally we make it to the second round to blow it. And granted, this doesn't mean we won't make it to the second round. But I can't remember the last time that we won the equivalent of a game 7. Legitimately, it has never happened in this era of process Sixers basketball. Yeah. So, yep, great. Oh, thank you very much in the comments for. Oh. Now I think they will.
Anything you believe, Duncan. Anything you believe, you got to manifest it.
I've been doing that all week, so
it hasn't worked.
No,
clearly not working.
Not working too well so far.
Love that.
Yeah, it's great. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're telling me I'm all over the place, but I'm doing good. I survived today. Today was one of those days where it's like the world was closing in at work, and then I survived. So I'm here. I'm here to talk football with you.
And that's all that really matters.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we do that? You want to talk about some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Move my screen. All right. Let's start with one of the bigger things from today is that an ESPN article came out about Bill Belichick, his job hunt, everything that kind of went down in the offseason for him. It was written, it says reported by Don Van Natta Jr. and Seth Wickersham and Jeremy Fowler. So in the article, they talk a lot about, the history of Bill Belichick a little bit. And then they talk about a couple of big key factors that I want to point out. One, the Falcons ranked all top head coaching candidates and like their panel who was looking into hiring head coaches. And they say that not a single person had Bill Belichick in their top 3. So that is where we get into the fact that Arthur Blank and Robert Kraft apparently talked on the phone at least twice during the coaching vacancy for the Falcons, and Kraft warned Blank not to trust Belichick. Some sources, not that source, but some other sources say that Kraft felt super betrayed by Belichick and that Robert Kraft actually wanted to move on from Belichick in 2022, but Jonathan Kraft talked him out of it. Did you get a chance to read into that article at all?
No, I didn't see it somehow, and I think I got the notification, but I also had one of those days at work, so I kind of just missed it. Jesus Christ, Tobias Harris, please, for the love of God, make a layup. Oh my Lord, I'm sorry, that was that won't be happening throughout the podcast, but that was just atrocious. That looked like me when I played basketball. Like just aim for the box on that's what it's there for. No, I didn't get a chance to read it. I did see that there was some stuff about the Philadelphia Eagles. Not really anything too groundbreaking, but really like this doesn't surprise me all that much. The thing that surprised me the most from what, from the kind of summaries that I've read, I plan on reading it in depth tomorrow, but is mainly just the the Robert Kraft and Belichick relationship. I always kind of just assumed it was better. Yeah. Especially after, there's not really, I can't say that he chose Tom Brady over him or he chose him over Tom Brady, whatever, but I just kind of always assumed they had a much closer relationship. And it's very, very interesting that he would seemingly go out of his way to not help Bill Belichick get another job in the NFL. But I think I feel like the main takeaways that I've been seeing are he's divisive and he scares people and why he's such a good coach. Why is he getting a job? It's like, does that really surprise anyone? Like that part doesn't surprise me. That seems very par for the course.
Yep. There was talk in there about how he basically said like I don't know if it was from him or from a spokesperson for him. I don't want to misquote it. So it's one of the two where it was like he understands that his breed of hybrid coach and GM has moved, like the league has moved on from that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, and especially seeing and that he was willing to give up some of those like GM type duties. He didn't want full control. He would be happy coaching. But I agree that it seems that the Kraft Belichick relationship was strained and that it went on for as long as it did because they didn't pull back any of his duties, right? Like in my mind, if that relationship is breaking down, you would say, all right, let me regain some control here. Let me take over more of the drafting and the GM duties, or hire a different, like an assistant person, assistant GM. You just let that go on. So to me, that it's an odd dynamic to see that the relationship was breaking down for quite some time now, and that nothing on the surface level that we can see was done to remedy that in advance of his departure.
One day there will be incredible books written about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I there's already one that I know I've heard really good things about the specifics of that dynasty. I forget what it's called. But like one day there is going to be some that come out after all of this. Like now that both Belichick and Brady have left, I am very excited to read those books eventually. I feel like this article is probably the beginning of those stories, but like everyone knows that over time, more and more will come out about what it was like in the building during these things.
Yeah.
And, I'm very intrigued because it's always been intriguing, and we're now finally, it is truly the end of that era, and it's more and more is coming out about it.
Yeah. Well, Bill Belichick has not left us for good. He is going to be alongside Pat McAfee for the ESPN draft coverage. What a duo. What a duo.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like for all of what I just said about Belichick, like he's always been a good media kind of guy on the few things that he's appeared on. He's always had a sense of humor. I mean, like he coached Rob Gronkowski for however many years. Like, there is a side of him that is excellent for that, and he actually gives insanely good analysis. Oh, there is a I think we talked about it on this podcast, but someone asked him about like a really specific question about like punters and kickers or like returners, and he went on like an 8-minute.
Why do you use a roster position on a like a specific like kickoff specialist
on a specific position?
Yep.
And like he gave one of the most intelligent answers I've ever heard, and it's
like literally went on a rant about the evolution of it.
Yeah, and it's like that was awesome. I will happily watch more of that. So at the very least, like that's very fun. So I'm very I'm excited to hopefully get some of that.
Yeah. Another person doing the same thing basically was Nick Saban, and we saw a lot from him too. Very similar situations. Now, I don't want to say in the leaving aspect, but like building a dynasty and then stepping away. And the same like stoic attitude on the surface that you can see. They look like they're built from the same breed. And then both have been very similar lately about media and about, like, I watched Nick Saban commentary at the Masters. Like he was doing some interviews at the Masters. They're still fun personalities, which is not something you would assume if you just watched them through football and like post-game pressers.
Yeah, this isn't John Gruden out there.
Yeah.
It does kind of blow my mind though. Like I was just thinking, I was like, wow, like head coaches, like I feel like everyone talks about the players that go into the media and that kind of stuff. It doesn't happen as often with coaches, but I feel like when it does, it goes really well. And then I thought about Sean Payton. I was like, oh no, never mind. He was pretty bad. Didn't enjoy my time with him. Then again, I'm not convinced that he's going to be great in Denver either. So regardless.
Yeah. Well, one more thing about that whole Patriots era. Lots of talk about, or rumors swirling, talk of the town. Tom Brady, thoughts?
No, shut up. He's not. No, I don't even want.
I don't agree, but I'm mentioning it because it has been notable talk.
No, there hasn't been notable talks. It's just like, no, he's retired.
Not between him, just the internet. They should leave that man alone.
Yeah, just leave. I don't want to talk. Like it frustrates me to no end. Just leave him be. He's not coming.
Okay.
He's not coming back.
You should leave that.
And I don't know. I'll do something stupid on this live stream if he comes back. But
what are you gonna do?
I don't know. But
you have to say it now. Someday.
All right. Well, if someone gives me a suggestion after the show, then I will agree to it next week. But
the Browns are returning to white face masks. Big news. Great news.
Yeah,
making a face out there.
No, it's just Browns are returning to white face masks, like out of context. It sounded really sus. Sounded very questionable until I heard the word masks. Even though I'm looking at the thing.
Yeah.
No, it looks good. I have a couple buddies in my like primary like group chat that get really really into the uniform stuff. So we're always talking about that kind of stuff, and they're big fans of it. Yeah, I like it. Probably never should have gone away, but it's probably going to be the least exciting of that type of news this offseason. I think now's probably a good time to mention that the Jets also unveiled new uniforms. Did you see them, and what did you think of them?
I just like them because one of the content creators I follow on TikTok lost his friend in the past year, and he showed a bunch of old pictures and told a lot about his friend. So that made me very happy. I really enjoyed that. Like him resharing the memories, like telling us why it was so important to him.
How is that related to the new uniforms?
Because him and his friends were, sorry, I should have explained it better. Him and his friend were Jets fans. They went to the game all the time. He has a bunch of old pictures of them in those uniforms.
Like
they were styled
like older
after.
people.
Yes.
What I thought maybe they designed them together. I was very
sorry.
No, they're great. They're really, really good. Immediately, I think probably one of the better sets of uniforms in the entire league, in my opinion. First of all, they have a great green. It's just a fantastic. I don't know if they call it Gotham green. I don't know which one exactly that is, but really, 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 really good. Good uniforms. I love the white on green. I love the green on white. Just awesome combos. It reminds me a lot of like the not exactly, but like the Chargers, how they put out their current uniform set, and you could just mix and match like however you want, and it all looks so good. So very, very excited for that one. And I believe we actually get the Lions tomorrow. I want to say we're recording this Wednesday night. I do believe we get the Lions tomorrow, if not tomorrow, sometime this week. So very excited to see them as well.
I really love the white on white Jets ones.
Yep, they're very good. Very, very, very good.
Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice turned himself into police earlier this week for the vehicle accident, which caused multiple injuries that he was involved in. Andy Reid does report, though, that he is expected to participate remotely during phase 1 of returning, which is their voluntary offseason program.
That sounds like we're back in like COVID or something.
Yeah.
But
like, what would you do? Just like, hi, my name's Rashee Rice.
I don't know.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something you do know about. Devontae Smith and his new contract.
It's a short list. 3 years, $75 million. That really only tells like part of the story. And I have something here. So what it ends up being, because they also tacked on his 5th-year option as he was a former first-round pick. Right now, my home phone is ringing.
I was just going to say, do you have a home phone?
I do. Not sure why it's ringing. Sorry if you're hearing that. I can't say that's ever been a problem for me.
That's a first.
Yeah, I'm sure it rings during the day with like garbage.
Yeah.
But, like at 8 o'clock. Very weird. So they tacked on his 5th-year option, which is 2025. So the new money in this deal doesn't actually start until 2026. So when you're looking at it at $25 million per year, $75 million in new money, it doesn't start until 2026. Yes, it sounds as if they signed him to a top 5 wide receiver contract, which right now in money per year, yes, that's true. It's on par with AJ Brown, who I believe is 5th. With Tyreek leading the way at $30 million per year. But the reality is, in 2 years from now, you're going to get Jamar Chase. You're going to get Justin Jefferson. You're going to get a whole bunch of wide receivers getting brand new contracts. And like usual, the Eagles are benefiting from locking this up early. He still has the last year of his rookie deal this year, and he has the 5th-year option before that new money starts. He's now under contract through 2028, which puts him in lockstep with Jalen Hurts' contract. And yeah, that $25 million is probably going to feel pretty much like a steal by the time Justin Jefferson is getting paid like $35 million per year or whatever he ends up getting.
Yep.
But more importantly, and this is specifically because I've seen a lot of this discourse online, and don't get me wrong, Howie is a genius. He's a magician. He's incredible at his job. Howie Roseman being the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. But the thing that sets the Eagles apart with the ability to make contracts like this, and specifically what I mean is here are Devonta Smith's cap hits for the next 4 years, starting in 2025. This is his 5th-year option. It's $7.5 million. 2026, first year of the new deal. Well, remember, that's $75 million over 3 years. His cap hit is $10 million. In 2027, his cap hit is $14 million. And in 2028, his cap hit is $20 million. Not a single one of those cap hits is even at the average value per year of $25 million. And then he has 4 void years left at the end of it, 2029 to 2023, which allows them to spread out the bonus. So basically what that means for people that don't nerd out over this stuff like I do, partly because I have to as an Eagles fan, is essentially with the way they structure the contracts and they're able to put void years at the end. The reason every team doesn't do this, like it's not like a cheat code that allows them to, get away from the cap or all this stuff. They're not cheating a system. It's entirely about cap hits versus actual money spent. Jeffrey Lurie is an incredible owner who's willing to spend a lot of money on his team. So he allows Howie to structure the contracts this way because while the actual money being spent in each of those seasons is under that $25 million, so you're like, where is it? It's all being paid up front. A crap ton of it is being paid up front in a signing bonus or other, yearly bonuses that you're able to spread out for the cap hits. But that means that that Jeffrey Lurie, instead of writing, whatever it is, a game check per week, whatever that turns out to, he is writing Devonta Smith like a $20 million check that, hey, go cash this right now. Not every owner, a lot of owners don't like to do that. They don't want to spend all their cash right away. Jeffrey Lurie allows Howie to do that, and that allows Howie to be very creative when making these contracts and being able to space them out. And something that I find very interesting is looking at the Eagles offense, and I know this got off track, but I did all of this work because I was bored at work. Jalen Hurts is under contract through 2028. A.J. Brown through 2026. Devonta Smith through 2028. Dallas Goedert through 2025. Saquon through 2026. Jordan Mailata through 2028. Landon Dickerson through 2028. Lane Johnson through 2026. And Cam Jurgens is on his rookie deal through 2025. Save for the right guard and your wide receiver 3 or tight end 2, whoever it is, your entire offense is under contract easily through 2025.
Yep.
So, and by the way, that's at a cap hit of 112,000 or Jesus, 112 million is that entire list's cap hit in 2025. For reference, Dak Prescott's cap hit this season is like 57 million. So,
yeah, it allows for it. I can understand benefits of doing it both ways, but personally, that's the way to do it, is the way the Eagles are doing it. It allows for greater flexibility in the long run without leveraging your future on your current status. So you can pay a bigger check up front. You're footing the bill either way. That's the thing. It's just in different ways. And to foot the bill up front and not leverage your future is a smart move for most franchises, especially with the current with the parity of the NFL, how much changes year to year, with the risk of injuries being high. So yes, you paid that up front, but now you have the flexibility to sign someone else or trade for someone else and pay them afterwards. You have more flexibility in the long run if you don't leverage your future on long-term cap hits. Yep. And it's, in my eyes, the right way to do it.
And you look at the disparity between what's going on in the Eagles locker room at OTAs right now. Devonta Smith is thrilled. Him and AJ Brown make the exact same amount of money per year. They're both showing up. Jalen Hurts, all those guys are under contract. Then you look over at Dallas. Jerry Jones, one of the biggest names in football, maybe the biggest name in football ever when it comes to just like an owner. And what is he doing? His quarterback is on the final year of his deal, cannot be franchise tagged, and they have no leverage whatsoever because they have nothing behind him, basically.
And
Micah Parsons,
40-year-old running backs.
Well, yeah. Micah Parsons, their star defensive end, their star edge rusher, holding out for a new contract. CeeDee Lamb, their star wide receiver, holding out for a new contract, not at OTAs. It feeds off itself. So it's really fun.
Yeah, and you had mentioned getting it done early. I think you're approaching, like you said, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, which is going to be another one of those reset the wide receiver market moments with names like that. And with the cap growth, because the cap grew recently, it allows for greater contracts and size. So it's going to be upcoming on the wide receiver market being reset. So locking down your guy who you have faith in, who you know works well for you on a contract that benefits both parties this early is beneficial.
And by the way, Devonta Smith, he's the wide receiver 2 on the Eagles. There are days when he's the wide receiver 1. I've seen a lot of that floating around as well. He would be the wide receiver 1 on more than half the teams in the NFL.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So what's next? The Jags have had contract talks with quarterback Trevor Lawrence. He has said it's not currently his focus. He's focusing on the upcoming season. I just want to note it because I know that'll be a big one to keep an eye on his contract and just the Jags in general. Jeez. And Niners wide receiver Brandon Ayuk and Raiders wide receiver Devontae Adams are not being asked to be traded. That's from their camps. They say they are not seeking trades. Devontae Adams said, if I wanted to be gone, I'd be gone by now. Brandon Ayuk's agent came out and said, this is all false. So back to what we were talking about last week. Don't believe everything you read on the internet.
I buy Devontae Adams. I'm not sure I buy Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah?
There's way too much smoke for there to be no fire.
I don't know. I agree that he may be unhappy, but I don't know that he's seeking.
I mean, there's a difference between requesting a trade and saying, hey, I kind of want to be traded or pay me. I don't think that there's nothing there. Devontae Adams, I think there's kind of nothing there. It kind of sort of came out of nowhere. I think that has more to do with really, really good wide receiver on a team with no quarterback, which is a fair assumption. Brandon Ayuk, that good of a team, that consistently, where's that smoke coming from then?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's something there. I'm not saying that he's requesting a trade officially, but I do think there's something there. There's too many sources that have said that the something is there for me to not believe it.
Yeah. In other news, Applebee's is named the official grill and bar of the NFL. I hate phrasing it as grill and bar, not bar and grill, but that is how the NFL is phrasing it. So congratulations to Applebee's.
I hate Applebee's.
Why?
I hate it.
Why?
It's bad.
It's good bad food.
No, it's not. It's bad okay food. I cannot stress you enough how upset I was when I saw this news. I have a book over there that some of my college buddies made. It was kind of not a yearbook, but it kind of acted as a college yearbook, just has some of our memories. And I'm literally quoted in it saying, I fucking hate Applebee's.
Why?
Because they suck. We went there for dinner and it was bad.
Once?
I mean, I've been there plenty of times, but yes, the one time in particular that I was quoted for, I never allowed us to go back there for dinner again.
Jesus
it was terrible.
Christ. But what half off apps? Great deal.
Great. Half off
great
slop
deal.
And crap and garbage.
My town, we often went in high school, when you didn't go out and do things at the younger years of high school, hung out at Applebee's during half off apps.
We had a diner for that. So
yeah, we did do that often, but Applebee's was the other place. The diner got really expensive.
Yeah, we just got water.
It was half off apps.
We just got water.
One time my sister went to, this is getting off track. One time my sister went to Applebee's for half off apps and thought that meant half off Applebee's, and they ordered a bunch of like the bigger entrees, not appetizers, and then had to call my mom and be like, we don't have enough money. I thought this meant half off Applebee's, not half off appetizer.
Look, I'm just saying, if you don't have to name an official bar and grill. Not everything has to have an official version for the NFL.
Do you think like Chili's put in like a
That's
good
what
offer?
I mean. There were better options, NFL. Like, you didn't take the 101, not even close.
I'm mad at Chili's, though. They closed the location nearest to me.
I think my nearest Chili's is still open. I'm just saying, they could have done better. Like,
all right, who's your number one overall pick in the grill and bar category for the NFL?
Like, assuming we're talking, like, chain restaurants, I know I'm forgetting some. Off the top of my head, it's TGI Fridays.
I was just going to say Fridays.
It's long since been the 101 in my life.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the Chili's is great. Applebee's is garbage. Obviously, like, I don't eat at these places very often, but like growing up, like Fridays was the nice restaurant we went to. I feel like most suburban families had that one.
Yes, TGI
one bar and grill restaurant chain that they went to. Ours was TGI Fridays. We went to Ruby Tuesdays one time. And I thought it'd be fine, but they didn't have hot dogs on the menu, so we left. That was before I even ate chicken nuggets. So
you know what chain restaurant that was for my family?
Applebee's.
And
garbage. The garbage bar and grill.
Grill and bar.
It's garbage. That too.
In other news, O.J. Simpson has died.
Dang.
I
just want to give a quick shout out to Shrek 2 for the best O.J. Simpson joke of all time. When human Shrek is riding on Donkey, who is turned into a white horse, and the news with a helicopter is talking about how there is a white Bronco running away from the cops or whatever they say. Shout out to Shrek 2. Other than that, that's really all I have to say about when it comes to that's all I got. I am also looking at a list of casual dining restaurant chains.
Oh, okay. All I was going to say is that when a figure like O.J. Simpson passes away, it's super easy to memorialize his statistics and his career, and I think we should be careful and there is a way to have a nuanced conversation about this and not completely idolize and memorialize O.J. Simpson for that stuff, because he had a lot of bad things. Yeah.
Yes.
That was my soapbox.
All right, you can get off it now.
Okay, step off. You don't want to talk about whoa, none of that came out right. Do you want to know what we're going to talk about next?
Yeah.
Quarterbacks.
So. Okay.
We're going to talk about quarterbacks.
Okay. Everything okay over
there?
Took
a little while. Yeah, I don't know what just happened there. All of the words blended together into like one big blurb of sounds.
Oh, I do like Miller's Ale House. That's a good one.
Honestly, I don't know that I've ever eaten there. What are the other options?
There's a lot.
Would you consider Buffalo Wild Wings to be a grill and bar?
No.
Okay.
I think that's a sports bar. I think there's like, in my head, there's a difference. In reality, there's probably not a difference.
That's why I'm asking. Like, yeah. I don't know that I would consider it in that category.
See, Jake's got it. Big fan of Lancer's Diner. That was ours. That's where we went.
Mine was Mediterranean Diner.
That sounds horrible.
No, it was actually really good.
I'm sure it's good. It's a diner. Like, all diner food is at least okay.
Where I live right now has no diners, no late night foods. The greatest thing on earth is getting like a pancake at like 9:00 at night. And there's nothing around here like that.
Well, Lancers is
I miss
closed
New York.
At 3:00 now in the afternoon.
In the afternoon?
Yeah, it's COVID.
Ugh.
Made it so, yeah.
COVID killed the diners.
I know. It's very sad. All right, we can move on to quarterbacks now.
Okay. Our last skill position to talk about before the draft, the big one that there's lots of eyes on. So let's just do it in the order, I guess, that I have it on the list. And we can talk about kind of our orders if you have one afterwards. So let's start with the most consensus. Number one is Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. He is 6'1", weighs 214 pounds, and ran a 4.59 40 and won the Heisman last year.
Yeah, he was a 5-star prospect out of Washington, D.C. He didn't play his senior year of high school due to COVID, which is kind of fun. He was ranked as the number 2 quarterback recruit in his class behind Quinn Ewers. He began his college career at Oklahoma, where he replaced Spencer Rattler, a guy we'll talk about later, as OU's starter for the final 7 games of the 2021 season. Then he transferred to USC after Lincoln Riley was hired there. He won the Heisman Trophy in his first year at USC, throwing for 4,500 yards, 42 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. And he also threw for another 3,600 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions last year. But yes, consensus number 1 overall pick, and one of the more telegraphed ones in recent years. The Bears. He only visited the Bears, so
yeah, it's doing a really good job at.
If I had to place a bet,
his cards. Yeah, I don't think you'd earn much money on that one.
I wouldn't be shocked if they took it off the books already. I can't
probably
bet on the draft in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't know.
So let's talk a little bit about Caleb Williams. So he is a really well-rounded all-around threat with his arms, with his legs, with his football IQ. He's flexible, agile. He's a really quick thinker. He has spot-on accuracy even while on the move. He is a bona fide playmaker. That's what you're signing up for, is a guy who can make big plays. He was slightly, I don't even want to say it like divisive, because people are just ridiculously crazy nowadays. But Caleb Williams got backlash for like being upset when his team was knocked out and for painting his nails. But he's super true to who he is. His teammates have done nothing but say good things about how he leads the locker room, how he's someone they all look up to and would follow off a cliff. Yeah, lots of upsides for Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Obviously, like, he wouldn't be the number 1. Like, we're not breaking news here. He wouldn't be the consensus number 1 overall pick, who he will go number 1 overall, if there weren't obviously a billion good things. So something that actually like just maybe dropped today that I was really excited to read was Ben Solak from The Ringer, Eagles fan, dropped his, he did the QB charting, which he does every year. He goes through, like their response to pressure, their pinpoint percentage heat map, situational pinpoint percentage, basically. And a pinpoint is like, is the pass where it's supposed to be? Like, did the wide receiver kind of have to adjust? Like, it's not just completion percentage. So very interesting stuff that I really like. And basically everything about him says, yeah, he's really incredible. He had a subpar supporting cast when it came to wide receivers for the numbers he puts up. And he did it all while being a playmaker. Like, he's somewhere in that like Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray type of mold, where he's out of the pocket, he's extending plays, he's doing weird things. And you watch him play football and it truly doesn't feel like you've watched football before in a way. Like, he just does so many things so different. It's so interesting. It's so fascinating. With that come some downsides. And this is all to say, like, in context, he's still the number 1 overall pick. The good far outweighs the bad, but it's not like we haven't seen number 1 overall pick quarterbacks not pan out before. If he was to not pan out, why would it be? I'll tell you. Thanks for asking me. The reason is because he didn't do great with... Thanks, Jake. In the comments, I think Caleb is a bust, and I have no reason other than a gut feeling. He had a 21.9% pressure to sack rate. That's not good. And it also points to the fact that he loves extending plays. He can make incredible plays. All of his numbers where it comes, like, he has a very low interceptable pass percentage. He does an incredible job at being accurate while he's on the run, while he's extending plays, when he's out of the pocket. All of that is insanely accurate. That's at the college level.
Yes.
That's not always a good thing. It's good in moderation. And it's good if you can actually do it consistently at any level. But part of the reason that he's passing in so many pressured or weird situations is he put himself in them. He's not taking checkdowns. He's not allowing his receivers to make plays for him. It's the cost of having a guy like Caleb Williams. But the thing that worries me is there will be good and there will be bad. Patrick Mahomes is the good, obviously, but he can do those things. He doesn't do them at the rate in which Caleb Williams does them. When I think of the bad, this is partly due to PTSD, but I think of Carson Wentz. After the Super Bowl run, after the concussion in the playoffs. In 2017, he was the best quarterback in the league, bar none. Would have won the MVP if he didn't tear his ACL. And if you go back and look at those highlights, there's probably a part of you that didn't believe it was real, because I constantly forget some of the amazing, incredible plays he made, and they foreshadow what Patrick Mahomes brought to the league. He was doing the Patrick Mahomes thing a little bit before Patrick Mahomes was. That being said, it didn't work out for him long term. The next couple of years, he kept trying to do the same things. He was holding on to the ball. He was escaping pressure. He wasn't taking the layups, the checkdowns. He wasn't allowing his wide receivers to make plays for him. And when it all swings one way, that's great. But when it all is swinging the other way, or even just a little bit more the other way, Carson Wentz is a backup in this league now for good reason.
Yes.
The Eagles moved on from him for good reason. Kyler Murray is a vastly different physical specimen, but has a very similar
skill set.
There's a lot of good with Caleb Williams, but there's also a lot of really scary things, especially when he's going to be going to a less than ideal situation. And we saw it with Justin Fields. Justin Fields was not Caleb Williams, but we've seen it before. Caleb Williams does not have the skill set that you're like, that will 1000% translate and it'll be great. He's going to do the exact same things. Like, there is a real world where he shows up to work on day one, realizes he's not playing against the guys he played against in college, and it just never works out. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's possible.
It is entirely possible. And I think there's going to be a lot of adjustment coming from a typically one read offense like USC and transitioning into the NFL. Because in a one read offense, Caleb Williams would go through his first read and then do it himself. You have to learn how to adapt because the NFL is not built like that. So again, that's not to say he isn't going to adapt, but it can be a hard transition from coming from a completely different style of offense and a different pace of play and transitioning so heavily. One of the more notable things too is that if he does decide to just do it himself in the NFL, he's got to improve that ball security. He carries it far away from his body. And it won't end well with pass rushers and linebackers, and none of that will end well if you're carrying the ball away from your body and you have a fully grown man running at you. This isn't college anymore. The ball security has to be at the top of the list. If they're trying to play up to Caleb Williams' skill set of giving him the options to take care of it himself, they have to work on ball security.
And just to be clear, because Carson Wentz's problem was a lot more than just he liked to play hero ball. He didn't take to coaching well, and that's why he never adjusted out of it. He just kept digging himself deeper into a hole. There's a very real world where Caleb Williams lands there, and he has all the he has the proper tools to succeed. It's just, can he get out of his own way when it comes to playing hero ball, and he can do it situationally, and that's the question that I want to see answered. Like, it's one question versus 1,000 pros, but that one question can be really bad if it goes the wrong way. So,
Yep. All right. Next on the list to talk about is LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels, who stands 6 feet 6'4" tall, weighs 210 pounds, and ran a 4.5 40.
Yeah, so he's the only player in FBS history with 12,000 passing yards and 3,000 rushing yards. He became the first player in FBS history to pass for 350 plus yards and rush for 200 plus yards in the same game, which is fun. He's a fifth-year senior and a former four-star prospect out of California. He started 12 games for the Sun Devils his freshman year. I believe that's ASU.
Yes.
As a true, he was the first true freshman quarterback in ASU history. He started all 13 games his junior year. He transferred to LSU as a grad student to play for Brian Kelly and started all 14 of LSU's games, passing for 29,000, jeez Christ, 2,900, 17 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in 2022 and in 2023. During his Heisman campaign, he passed for 3,800 yards, 40 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions while rushing for an additional 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I do want to vary. I want to dive a little bit more. Caleb, we know Caleb Williams pros. Like, there wasn't much talk about that we couldn't, that you didn't already know. So I want to talk a little bit more about Jayden Daniels' upsides. He had a 99.2 passing grade and a 69.1 adjusted completion percentage on 20-yard throws, which was the highest in the FBS last year, the 5th most deep throws in the FBS. He is someone who I feel like you can pick up on the fact that he has some really good football IQ to back up the physical strength that he has on the field. His footwork is another one of those players that you feel like is dancing out there. With his arms, consistently hits wide receivers in strides and identifies pressure well. There is a downside to that I'll get to in a minute. He has great read progression, excellent at escaping. Hold on, I don't want to say that part yet. Ticks a lot of boxes on what the modern NFL is looking for.
Yeah. He's so after Caleb Williams, who's the clear number 1 overall pick, you've got 2 guys that I think for a lot of people are expected to go 2 and 3, regardless of the order. But who those players are this guy, Jayden Daniels, and Drake May. And I think they're about as polar opposite as you can get in terms of what you're looking for in a quarterback, what you're drafting, the type of prospect that they are. Jayden Daniels is a traits guy. He's not the guy that, like, you're looking at his advanced numbers, his advanced metrics, and you're like, oh man, now that's he's ready. He's ready day one. Obviously, he has the stats, but his athletic traits are the things that are going to make him a top 5 pick rather than like a teens pick. He's not the most accurate. And especially after his first read, he goes from a 70% on his first read to about 46% pinpoint rate from Ben Solak, which is not good. He has an interceptable pass rate of 4.5%, which is tops of all the guys that we're going to talk about today. But he also took a sack on 23.3% of the dropbacks, which is significantly ahead of second to worst place, J.J. McCarthy at 18.3%, which is an absurd number. And absolutely ridiculously high. There's a lot to love about him from a physical perspective, obviously. But I watched a couple highlights of him taking hits. He's got a thin frame. He leaves himself open for devastating hits, which is really terrifying. It's going to be horrible if he ends up in Washington, but I already kind of see Robert Griffin III in him.
Yeah.
I think Robert Griffin III was maybe like a slightly better passer, slightly worse from a running standpoint. He's not quite Lamar Jackson as a runner because Lamar Jackson is the gold standard. He's basically, I'd put him like a tier below there. He's great from a clean pocket, but when it comes to pressure, things.
Yes, I want to talk about that for a second. So it's his ratio last year, his pressure to sack ratio last year was 20.2%. It did improve from the year before, which is a good sign. Obviously, you don't want to regress when you're already as bad as you were in 2022 at a 30.8 pressure to sack rate. 10 to 15 is the goal for that number. There's two sides to Jayden Daniels when pressure comes. One, he can escape the pocket way too quickly. The play breaks down, nothing is right in timing, and it screws the whole thing up. Two, he stays in the pocket too long, and you get a pressure to sack ratio of 20.2%. He's going to need to find that middle ground for himself. A lot of that's going to come on the dynamics of his team, what offensive line he walks into. Him and his coaches are going to have to find that middle ground for him on how he can successfully navigate the pocket, and the timing on that. That seems to be the biggest struggle for him, is either running away too early or staying just a hair too late.
Yeah, I agree. He has good deep accuracy, but the arm strength is nothing special. His velocity scares me a little bit. So yeah, he's going to. I would be shocked if he doesn't go top 3.
Yeah.
There's a good chance he goes top 2. But he is far from a sure thing, as any quarterback is. I know, as any prospect is, but he probably has the most kind of red flaggish types of stuff. But he also his upside is ridiculous.
Yes.
So.
Much higher ceiling than our. I don't even want to say that, actually. We'll talk about the other guy who now swaps 2 and 3, who no one really knows which one's going to go where, and that would be UNC quarterback Drake May. He stands 6 feet 4 inches tall. He weighs 223 pounds and ran a 4.6 40.
I'm sorry. Did we move on to Drake May?
We did move on to Drake May.
Unfortunately, that has nothing to do with the Sixers.
How's that going?
No, it's not great. But it could be worse. Oh, good. Joel Embiid's on the ground. Nope. Yep. Yeah, it's Joel Embiid. That's great. No, I got a text from my friend's mom who said, "Who the F is Vision?"
From like WandaVision?
Yeah, I would assume. So shout out to Kim. And
Love
Joe.
You, Kim.
Joe listens to this podcast, so he's the one that I'm always telling you wants to call in live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so shout out to them.
I feel like we shouldn't let him, but we should let Kim call in live.
No. Nope. Anyway, Drake May. He was a 4-star prospect out of Charlotte, North Carolina. He was the number 9 recruit in his quarterback recruit in his class. He committed to Alabama before signing a letter of intent with UNC. Redshirted his true freshman year for the Tar Heels in 2021. And then he started all 14 games his redshirt freshman year, threw for 4,300 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in 2022. He apparently received 2 $5 million offers to transfer, but never entered the portal. And then threw 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions in 2023 as just a redshirt sophomore, while rushing for an additional 449 yards while dealing with a sore ankle.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about his positives, his upsides. He has what you would probably call a prototypical quarterback build. Very, I want to say, like, your modern NFL, you're looking at like a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, but he still fits that older mold of what a quarterback was. He has great accuracy, has so many notable off-platform throws in his career. His mobility and flexibility are off the charts. His like range of motion when it comes to his arms is amazing. He does really good at adapting when the play doesn't go well. I do want to talk a little bit about that during the downsides too. I read a great thing from PFF for a great way to describe it, but we'll talk about that on downsides. He did really well with an absolutely terrible offensive line. He still succeeded, and that to me is a great sign if you're getting drafted in the top 3 picks, because the offensive line usually isn't great. And the Manning brothers love him. He went to their academy. They have done nothing but like tout his abilities the entire off season.
Yeah, he's the first thing I thought when reading about him, watching him, was like, if if this draft was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, he'd be the number 1 overall pick.
Yes.
Like he's prototypical. He's prototypical. 6'4", 223. On the younger side of things, high-end arm talent. He just has like just enough of like out of structure playmaking. Like I said, he rushed for 449 yards. Like ideally, I would love for my quarterback to pick up at least one first down rushing every game. Like that is like my baseline of like, unless you have like a Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, that's completely different. But like if you have a Justin Herbert, if you have a Peyton Manning or whoever it is, if they can just do that once per game, great. He's a good athlete. He can pick up chunk yards, which is exactly what I like to see. He has a very low turnover-worthy play rate per PFF. But there were times that he just kind of seemed to force throws into coverage. He plays a little bit of hero ball, but he also played on a garbage team. So there's a little bit of a different set of red flags here than there was with Jayden Daniels, which is really just, how do you really know how good he is? He played at UNC.
Yes.
He was the quarterback for UNC. And I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go into who the last, high draft pick out of UNC was. But he has all the tools to succeed. He has a very high NFL ceiling. It's just a little more unsure if he can reach it. He's not the most accurate on Ben Solak's charting stuff, but what is there's a quarterback charting. That's literally what it's called, quarterback charting by Ben Solak, his charting stuff. But something that is also very present is the high degree of difficulty of his passes. He has he has the second highest air yards per attempt of the 6 quarterbacks that we're going to talk about. And he also suffered a 7.8% drop rate, the highest in the class. So there's a lot to like about him. He is not afraid to put the ball in a very tight window. And he does it really well the majority of the time. So, yeah, a lot of good things.
Yeah, so I was reading, the one thing I wanted to talk about that I mentioned earlier is I was reading PFF's scouting report on him by Nick Ackridge. And they had cited like chaos ball a little bit. And obviously a lot of that comes with the fact that he just played at UNC. But so the quote exactly is, when the play breaks down, he can still succeed, but he doesn't rely on it. That playmaking can be very chaotic at times, leading to plays you don't normally see on a football field. But then they go into how that's also a downside. And I think describing it as chaotic football is a pretty good way to describe it. It can lead in turnovers when you're playing chaos ball. And I think some of that chaos goes down when you enter the NFL and you're not playing for UNC. But if you're playing for a top 3 draft pick, again, it's most likely you're not walking into the greatest situation in the NFL. So there still may be some of that chaos ball, and he has a tendency to kind of just toss it up and toss it out, or take the sack. He was another one with a fairly high pressure to sack ratio at 19.6. And I think a little bit of that stems from the fact that his footwork needs a little bit of tweaking. I think to be a little bit more successful with his legs, he needs some tweaking on his footwork. Tweak. Okay.
And now JJ McCarthy.
Who is 6'2", 219, and ran a 4.640. He is the quarterback from Michigan.
Yeah, he was the number 5 quarterback prospect in the 2021 class. He won the starting job in 2022 after him and Cade McNamara started a game to open the season. He ended the season having played in all 14 games, totaled 2,700 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, along with 306 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. And then he led Michigan to an undefeated national championship season in 2023, totaling 2,900 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions, also running for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, and that's really the biggest red flag here, is there's a lot of unknown. He played for the best team in the nation, a very run-heavy team.
Very run-heavy.
Never exceeding 3,000 passing yards at Michigan, and not having a ton of attempts behind it either. There's obviously all of the stuff that you really like about him, where he reminds you of a very pro-ready quarterback because he played in a pro-ready offense. He was extremely clutch on third downs, in the red zone, all that kind of stuff. But you're drafting a lot of unknown. You're drafting a lot of unknown. To me, he screams the guy that if the 49ers didn't have Brock Purdy, he's the kind of guy that I'd want there, because what a perfect fit.
Yeah, I agree. he does well up the middle of the field, which is always a good sign. He did a decent amount of design runs, and play action seemed to be one of the best scenarios for him. But again, you're mentioning a run heavy offense. I mean, there's not a lot to look at, right? Like, you can see what he does well, but you're not seeing enough of it to make a fully well-informed decision. Because of a run-first offense, he's another one who relies so heavily on their first read and often ends up throwing it into bad windows when the first read doesn't work out well. He has a huge accuracy, especially outside the numbers. He has a 27.1 uncatchable throw rate outside the numbers and 10.8% elsewhere on the field. Another one who tends to get his body ahead of his feet and then is stuck with his feet behind him. So his footwork, I would say, needs a little bit more than tweaking, needs a lot of help. And his touch is a little bit off to me. He never, I feel like sometimes he doesn't even know how hard or how slow he's throwing the ball.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I don't have it's just a lot of unknown. It's a lot of unknown, a lot of untapped potential possibly, or he's exactly who he is. Before we move on to kind of the lower 3 tier, we do have a question in chat real quick that I want to answer. Okay. You guys think that any of the top 4 guys will be given latitude if they start cold? That's his biggest concern for his or her. I don't actually know who's typing this. For Daniels, May, and JJ, I think they can all develop if they're given time to learn. My first reaction is, because I expect them to go top 4, all of them, I think, they're going to have time. Where we've seen less time to grow as of recently, if they don't show anything, is when you're drafted in the teens, maybe even the 20s, a la Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. But these teams they're betting on their future. So I do think that they'll likely have time. I think it's more about what situations do they find themselves in, and are those situations ideal for them to develop?
Yep. And I think it comes from, like you said, the situation, but for me, it's also if this team is in a decent enough place to be competing for a playoff spot or have more than 3 wins and you're the reason they're holding them back, you'll be given a little bit less latitude. Yep. But I don't know that any of these top 3, 4 spots taking them are going to end up in that place. They are struggling in many other places besides quarterback if they go where we think they're going to go. So I don't see that being a huge issue, but say a year from now, somehow the Patriots end up with a bunch of stars and are making a run for playoffs, and Drake May is the quarterback, and the reason they're not doing that is because Drake May is doing poorly. I think he's being given less latitude at that point. I do think they give a little bit more latitude to like a Drake May who is more of a sit in the pocket and try and take control, rather than, I think teams will tend to move on from players who take it all upon themselves and use their legs a lot more. I think they're given a little less latitude currently.
That's how it feels. And also, I think the one place where they might end up in that spot is if a team trades up.
Yeah.
To draft in the top 4.
Yes.
We've heard a lot of different people. The Giants, the Vikings. Who's the other big one? I want to say the Cardinals, but it's not the Cardinals. Don't remember who it is. But as trade up targets, and a lot of those teams probably have high hopes sooner rather than later, comparatively. Yes. So do you want to kind of just hit the big points on these last 3 guys?
Yes, let's do it.
Cool.
I have the most about Penix, so I can start just with Michael Penix. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington, is 6'2", weighs 216, and ran a 4.6 4.40. His upsides is that he has a wicked strong arm. His intermediate and deep balls are beautiful. He reads a defense really well in terms of identifying mismatches for his receivers and his pass catchers. His read progression is also great, and he has the lowest pressure to sack ratio in the entire FBS. But he does tend to just chuck it out under pressure a little bit, so that lowest sack rate is kind of skewed by the fact that he led the FBS in throwaways under pressure. His downsides, his biggest concerns, obviously, 1, he's older, he's 24. 2, he comes with a lot of wear and tear. He's had several ACL injuries. On the technical side of it, his consistency and accuracy need work. He had a 22.9% uncatchable inaccurate pass rate, which was highest out of this class of quarterbacks, and is slow off the release. He's a quarterback who it may very well be what you see is what you get.
Yeah. I don't have a ton to add. He had an incredible cast around him. Great offensive line, 3 future NFL receivers in Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. Obviously, the injury concerns are extremely real. But yeah, I mean, he was very good at throwing outside the numbers. I think this guy, he's either going to go late round 1, early round 2. I think there's a chance for him, or maybe this next guy more so than the third guy that we're going to talk about, to kind of land in a spot where he's going to have time to not start right away and maybe goes to a more playoff ready team. So,
yeah, I agree. Next up on the list is Bo Nix, the quarterback out of Oregon. He is 6'2", 214 pounds, and ran a 4.75 40.
Yeah, he's a highly experienced player. He had a college football record 61 starts over 5 seasons. He's already 24 years old. He has thrown 1,936 passes in college. The good is he's highly experienced. He has a good arm, he has good athleticism, and he can be a factor in the run game and some out of structure plays. He has good arm strength. I forget I've already said that. The bad is that, well, he benefited a lot from Oregon's quarterback-friendly scheme, and he's also going to be a 24-year-old rookie. Teams could look at that as one of a few ways. They could look at it as they had a ton of, in the fire experience, which doesn't come easily for quarterbacks to, grow and get experience actually playing under center as opposed to just being a backup. And they might see that as a good thing, or they might see it as he's already reached the ceiling. This is who he is, and you're probably not going to get much more than that.
Yeah. He's another one who can get really involved in chaos ball. And I really like the way PFF described it. And he does get wrapped up in that. I think he has some pretty decent fundamentals, and relies on his first read a lot. So like his footwork needs a little bit of work. His arm mechanics are pretty decent. But it's like you get some, and then there's a downside. Every good of his has a downside. That's my issue with it, is that like he plays the chaos ball. He does have a tendency to extend plays and make these cool off-platform throws when timing breaks down, but it leads to turnovers for him in the long run.
Yeah, another guy I think in a very similar tier to Michael Penix.
Yes.
It's similar.
Yep. And last at the top of our QB list is Spencer Rattler.
Bottom.
Probably. The top of the bottom, yeah. So that would be Spencer Rattler, who is 6 feet tall, 211, and ran a 4.95 40.
Yeah, started his career at Oklahoma, and there was a period of time where everyone thought he was the next guy because I think Oklahoma at the time was coming off of like back-to-back number 1 overall picks. Kyler Murray, and then I legitimately cannot remember who the one after him was. It was Baker, then Kyler, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then obviously that didn't really go how he wanted. He got benched for Caleb Williams, and he ended up transferring to South Carolina. Immediately, he reminds me of Baker. They're not the super similar players, but like 6 foot, kind of erratic. His decision making is a little all over the place. His accuracy is a little all over the place. Like Baker was a better player, a better prospect. I really think it's just the fact that they're both like around 6 feet. They're undersized, and they played at Oklahoma. I don't really know why. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know. I think Baker's taller than that, but still undersized. And he's undersized, and he's not really a full threat to run like other guys that are that size, like Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray. Yeah. So he's very incomplete. He's got certain tools, but he seems like, I mean, to me, he's just a clear tier below anyone else that we've talked about today.
Yes.
Interesting, but definitely a project, and there's no promise of ever any payoff.
I think that's the best way to describe it. Is it is a project with Spencer Rattler. I think he relies too heavily on his arm strength a lot. He thinks his strength will get him there, and it leads to a lot of inaccuracies. And what was I going to say? I have my notes here, and then I forgot to transfer those notes over. His vision isn't the greatest, and he under pressure, he kind of falls apart. He doesn't maintain a lot of his composure when the pocket starts to break down around him. So I think it's a project. I think it's going to require a lot of practice and training on or retraining on the basics that Spencer Rattler has.
So in summation, we've got everything from painted nails to old men in this quarterback class. The very varied one, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's also a lot of variance in skill set, which is refreshing. And it will be interesting to see what teams value, even after the draft, when you have insiders come out and say, you know, they really valued this because, or they wanted this type of guy because they thought this XYZ. I think it'll be interesting to see because there is a clear variance in skill set.
Yeah.
And what they bring. Well, Duncan, that wraps up our pre-draft analysis. Next week, we're going to do our annual mock draft. Are you drafting odds or evens? Because I need to get ready.
I think I called evens.
Okay. So you have evens. I'll do odds. I get the first overall pick.
Yeah, I kind of hate that I have the second overall pick, honestly.
Yeah. Ew. Well, you asked for it. So I'm odds. You're evens. We will be here next week doing that. But where between now and then, where can we find you?
Possibly drowning my sorrows. The Sixers are losing going into the fourth quarter. Better than it was going into the half, but still not anything that makes me happy. So, go Sixers, I guess. But other than that, you can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75 and blah, blah, blah.
Yada, yada, yada. You could find me on Twitter at Ashley_Murray with 2 A's and Ashley. You can find me, Duncan, the entire Undroppables crew on our Discord channels, which you can get access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theundroppables. You can find me and Duncan here live, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on stream on Twitter, or you can listen back wherever you'd like. That would be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that jazz. We hope to see you next week. We hope you join us. Have fun. Talk about the draft.
Go Birds.
Bye.